Hello and welcome back to another episode of Abbey the Podcast Lady. I have been loving having special guests on the show thanks to the PodMatch service. It has been hooking me up with some really great people. Some really cool conversations have been happening, and today I know it's going to be no exception to that rule. We have Jeff joining us to talk about live podcasting. Hello, Jeff.
Hello. I do love the PodMatch universe. There's almost like this secret society of podcasters that are secretly networking to help build each other's shows up. And I'm so excited to connect with you and looking forward to our chat.
I will sing its praises until I'm blue in the face. I literally just had a meeting with someone today who just got started in podcasting, and they were like, well, we want to start bringing guests on, but we don't really know anyone. I'm like, oh boy, do I have the solution for you. And they were just blown away by it. And they're like, it's like a dating app for podcasters. I'm like, kind of, yeah.
That's exactly what it does, and it does it really well. And if you are active in the system, it keeps sending you more people. The more active you are, the more people you get to meet.
Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful, and some really great connections have come from it. So, Jeff, you are really immersed in the live podcasting space. And I think that's kind of what caught my eye when you sent me a message on PodMatch, because this is an approach I don't see a whole lot of in my sector of the podcasting world. It's just not something that comes up a whole lot, but I'm fascinated by it because I come from the world of radio broadcasting, which I did a live show every single day for like a decade. So I'm very familiar with the concept of it and how it works, but with podcasting, it's kind of a different venture. I would love to hear your journey and how you got involved with this. Take me back to the very beginning. What did starting out podcasting look like for you?
Well, my first swing at it was like in 2011, and it was a disaster. I had no idea even what an RSS feed was or how to produce a show, how to release a show. There was a blogging platform called Typeform or TypePad way back. It was just a blog platform, like it's similar to WordPress, and they advertised you could host your podcast here. So I recorded a podcast, I uploaded it, and I'm like, now what? What they didn't tell you was they were just putting an MP3 file on a blog. It wasn't really even a podcast. And I kept thinking about that. And I'm a very social guy. I like to hang out, I like to have fun. I'm a big goofy guy making jokes. I come from a history of skateboarding and punk rock. So it's very communal for me. Everything is your credibility and your net worth is what people think of you and how much fun you're having. And I brought that to podcasting in about 2015. I wanted to start a trivia show, and I found this platform called Blab, and the internet's kind of divided into two camps. Either you were there for Blab or you weren't. And if you know about Blab, you have this lifelong community, just like PodMatch. Like we were there, we were immersed in the moment, and Blab was one of the first 4-in-the-box live streaming services. And back in 2015, you can go live, and it had the social element where it would deliver 30 people to your room. Within 3 minutes, your room would fill up with people watching your live stream, and it was chaos. You could type commands and make the screen shake. You could make it snow. Like you could give props and like coins would start falling around. It was very ahead of its time. And what made it so unique is it was recording it, and at the same time, you could download the recording. So I figured out like, oh, I'm having this fun party-like environment. We're playing trivia. It's like a game show. And then I can extract all that video, audio, and I can turn that into an MP3 file and release that as a podcast. So that was kind of like where all this like social stuff started to work into podcasting. And I kept trying to push that boundary. Like, what could a podcast be? Does it just have to be me in my mom's basement or my home studio recording? Or could it be something more? Could I interact with people? And over the years, Zoom and StreamYard and Hop-In, Appear-In, all these places started to really build up the live element. It kept building that social element, but it's still, people were so isolated. I just wanted to bring people together. I wanted to think of like the comedy club model, or when you go to see a band at a venue, you're there with people, you're experiencing things in the moment. And I think we're at a point now where podcasting can be that and so much more. We can really take this to the next level.
That's amazing. The way you're describing Blab is kind of how I'm like picturing TikTok live at the moment, where people are sending roses and galaxies and all that stuff. It was kind of like the early version of that, if I had to like compare it to something that's happening nowadays.
Unfortunately, Blab had zero business model, and it grew so rapidly in that 2-year period. It just collapsed under its own weight. Like it had no way to sustain itself. And you'll still meet people 10 years later that were there for Blab, and it just has this place in your heart because nothing has ever replaced it. And I think I'm 10 years later, I'm trying to build that in real life. I'm trying to build a place where you could, just connect with people and not be worried about the algorithm delivering the right content to the right people. You're just immersed in this local community and just having a great time with people in front of you, laughing and clapping and shaking your hand and thanking you for doing a live, getting them out of their house, getting them off their phone. People are very excited to go into a theater environment and just consume a podcast with other people and be there in that moment.
Because podcast consumption can feel pretty like isolating. I know I find like every single, we're going to wrap this show. I'm going to ask you what shows you've been listening to lately, and everyone's listening to something different. And when you do have crossover with someone, you're like, oh my goodness, we listen to the same thing. I have someone to talk to about this thing that I feel very passionate about. And because there's just so much to consume these days. There aren't those like things that everyone's watching. There's no water cooler show anymore. So the fact that you're creating an environment for that, I think is just so special.
Yeah. And it's, there's a couple problems, right? It's not just all fun and games and you just open a theater. You're working in a new field, a new type of entertainment. I had joked earlier about being a podcaster in your basement or in your home studio. We're in a very safe environment, you and I. I can come home, I can turn my computer on, I fire up my microphone, I turn on my lights, and I know I'm going to get a product that I'm comfortable with. And you're the same way in your home studio, home office. You're safe. And so a lot of podcasters really relish in that safety. They want to be in an environment they can control. Getting them out of that environment, that, hey, you got to come to the theater. Let me produce your show. Let me control your audio. Let me control the live stream. That's dangerous for a lot of podcasters. So I'm working to change that model and try to get people to break free from, I got to be in my home studio. I got to be in my home office. And on the other side of this, the public hasn't really done podcasting or thinks of podcasting as a thing you can do. It's maybe a thing you listen to. Maybe a big actor or a comedian is coming to your local arena or theater. You might go see them, but you don't think is going to see them and their podcast. So we're trying to also train the public like, hey, this is a new form of entertainment, just like going to see a comedian at a comedy club, just like going to see a musician at a bar or a local venue. You can do this, and it's a whole new form of entertainment. It's a whole new way to ingest something that you're interested in. If you have different hobbies or different interests, whether they're sports related, political related, you macrame cowboy pants for some reason, there's a group of people who do that too. And this is a way to connect with them in real life. But we got to figure out, how do we inform the public that you can do this as a form of entertainment? And how do we get the podcasters to break free and get out of their houses?
Yeah, for sure. So when did you initially have the idea to build what's behind you? If you're watching the video version, I strongly recommend it because this is a gorgeous setup that you have here. What was that light bulb moment like?
2017, I started thinking about this idea, and a friend of mine was opening a coffee shop, and he had a parking lot that was next door that wasn't being used. And he said, why don't we do a show here? You're doing these live streams anyway. Let's do one in real life. I'll buy tacos, we'll have drinks and everything. And I said, all right, and it kind of kicked the idea around for a while. And then he ended up moving spaces, and he's like, I got the perfect place. And it was 2020. It was March 30th, 2020.
Nothing was happening then.
Finally, to do our first live show. Unfortunately, the world shut down on March 21st. And even like 5 days before, we're like, I think we could still do it, right? That's almost 14 days of quarantine. We could probably still have it. And we ended up canceling the show. And I started thinking about this idea more and more, because the original version of that was, I called it Theater in My Car, where I had a podium, I had a mixer, I had some speakers, and I had like 3 mic stands where I could set it up. And you can see there's a video, maybe you put in the show notes, from a long time ago, where you can see that all that you see fit in the back of my car. So it was theater anywhere. And this idea, after Blab closed and after we had trouble doing the pandemic, I thought, well, I could really just set something up anywhere. Maybe it's at a park or along a river trail or one of those clamshells you see at your local park or a mall or sidewalk, and just do a podcast anywhere. And I thought, how fun would that be, just to jump into the community and do a show? And that idea didn't have many legs, but I had all the structure and had everything built out. But then I started thinking about, okay, well, I love doing live shows. I love doing shows with people. I was like, what if I just, started going to like people's parties, like a raging kegger in a basement or a bar mitzvah or like a birthday party or a wedding ceremony. I could do shows anywhere and kind of like a DJ kind of
Yeah.
mentality. I was like, that's good. But the trivia shows, and, at that time, bigger global audience. And I was like, some people are going to miss out on seeing those live shows. So I started really thinking about what if I wasn't confined by a space? What is a theater? Where is a theater? How can you build a theater? You could really have, with the technology that we have today, that almost everybody has access to, you could have the ability to record a show from anywhere. And at the time, I don't know if you know what a Mevo camera is.
Oh,
I could set up a Mevo,
I have so
the
many
old one.
Mevos.
Yeah, the old cylinder one.
Oh,
If I
yeah.
took a Mevo out, I could theoretically have 9 different camera shots from one camera. I can broadcast that. It has Ethernet. So if I can connect to the internet, now I can have like television quality production even if I'm in somebody's basement during their party, I can then broadcast and I'm not confined by the space of that room. Like if you look at the theater behind me, I'm licensed to have 40 people in that room, but the capacity for a show that I produce is the same as Madison Square Garden. I could theoretically have this little baby box of a theater, but because I have cameras all around and I'm mic'd everywhere, I can broadcast that to the world, and the same amount of people that can fit in Madison Square Garden can see the show. And that was kind of like the light bulb moment is, what if I'm not confined by the walls of a physical structure? I don't need to spend thousands and thousands of dollars to rent a hotel ballroom or to rent out a theater. I could do it for like $800 a month with a small little theater space. And, I'm in a depressed area in Western Pennsylvania, typical Rust Belt town that's collapsed, but there's plenty of retail space available. It's not going to break the bank. I can test this theory out and I can build something special that I don't know if it's ever existed before. I know there's been iterations of what a podcast theater is, but the combination of the podcast theater with the TV station it's pretty unique and it's pretty powerful with what you can accomplish on a shoestring budget.
It is so insane. I love stories like this because I also come from a small town that not a whole lot's going on in there. And I moved to the big city. It's an hour away. The only thing special that makes it big is that it has two targets, like whoop-de-doo. But I have a podcast studio in the downtown area too. And it's like, yeah, you can do these cool things in areas that you wouldn't necessarily expect them to be happening. Like you just got to have a vision and a dream. And like you said, you can do it on a shoestring budget. That's not an issue.
Absolutely. And I tell people this is ahead of its time a little bit in the fact that is the public ready for it? Are the podcasters ready for it? It has traction, it has interest, and it is growing rapidly. And if you listen to my news podcast, every week I'm talking about 6 stories about people doing podcasts live. So you'll start to see as we get towards the end of this interview, this is happening way more than just in my town. And what I tell people is you probably don't have this in your town. I know that for a fact because I haven't found any other ones in the area or in the United States. But every town has a coffee shop. Every town has a record store. Every town has a library. And a lot of libraries have media centers or auditoriums. And they're looking to bring people in. They want people to use these spaces. If you go to a coffee shop, and I know Saturday afternoons, it's a slower time for you. Do you think from like 2 to 3, I could come in and just record an episode of my podcast? And if anybody wants to watch, they can watch. A lot of bars have stages off to the side. Same type of thing. You have spaces in your town, in your area. Be creative. Like you can do this anywhere. You don't need to have a theater space. You can do this wherever you're at. And you should actively try to do one show by the end of next year. If you do anything with your podcast, try it. I promise you it'll change the way you think about podcasting.
I love that. That is a beautiful challenge. Like, this is the time of year everyone's setting those goals, making those plans for 2026. I think that's a great thing to push you outside of your comfort zone. Because, like you said, we get comfortable in our own spaces. I know I'm comfortable in my little editing cave here in the basement. I'm comfortable in my studio in downtown. But I know if I took myself out of either of those environments, or if I took any of my clients out of their environments that they record in, it'd be like a fish out of water. But sometimes you need that little kick in the pants to really like, oh, what are people resonating with in person? Because then you're getting that live feedback too from like, oh, that's making people think more than I thought they would. Or I thought they'd really enjoy this, and they kind of seem like they're checked out. So I think that's a great challenge to just really push yourself outside of your little comfort zone for 2026.
I don't know how your audience, how receptive they are to math, but I have a little bit of numbers that really helps cement this as why this is probably a better business model for 90% of podcasters. I don't know if you want me to share it. I'll go into a couple numbers right now.
Drop those numbers. If they need to pause and add up on their fingers, let them.
If you look at, I'm going to give you stats from Buzzsprout, from Libsyn, and they release their server logs and they tell you what podcasters get. And if you get more than 1,000 downloads on your episode, you're in the top 10%. So 90% of podcasters aren't getting 1,000 downloads per episode. And that's important to know because a lot of people come into podcasting. They want to be the next Joe Rogan, the next Bill Burr, the next Whitney Cummings. But the reality is 90% of people aren't going to get to that 1,000. And that's okay. You don't necessarily need to have 1,000 downloads to have a podcasting business. But the reason a lot of podcasters get into business is they want to do host-read ads. They're like, oh, I'm going to make a podcast. I'm going to read sponsors for Sherry's Berries and Purple Mattress, and I'm going to make millions of dollars. The important thing is when you do ads for podcasts, you typically can get about $20, $25 per 1,000 downloads. So, where does that math break down? Well, if 90% of you aren't getting to 1,000 downloads, it's going to be hard to make that $20 per ad read. And that's okay. What I try to tell you, if you take me up on my challenge and you do one live show by the end of the year, and let's say you sell 4 tickets. You sell 4 tickets. With my business model, I give you the theater space. I produce the tickets and the landing page. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff. But at the end of the night, we sit down and we split the door 50-50. So if you sold 4 tickets at $10, $40 total in sales, you would walk away with $20. Now ask yourself, as a podcaster, is it a lot easier to get 4 people to come to your show or to get to 1,000 downloads? And what I've been preaching is there's another business model that a lot of podcasters aren't thinking about. And it's a model that maybe it isn't going to change your life right off the bat, but it's going to build something a lot more special, a lot more tangible. You're going to meet people in your community a lot faster. And I guarantee you, your first show, you're going to make more money than you'd probably make in a year trying to wait for host-read ads. So start thinking about your podcast just a little bit differently. There are things that you can do on top of just sell tickets. You could have merchandise. Maybe you have t-shirts. Maybe you sell a sponsorship on the back of the ticket. Then whenever you have that package, maybe part of that package includes an ad read. Now you can do the ad reads on your show. So you can kind of double dip with your sponsors. And you think about this as this is media that you're creating, that you're owning. And you're doing it live. You get 4 people to show up. 4 people watching you is worth 1,000 people downloading. And we know who's getting 1,000 downloads. 90% of us aren't.
Right.
So let's rethink that. And I call it the Moneyball math of podcasting. What if you get 8 people to your show? Or what if you get 12 or 20 people? Like that starts to change things every episode.
I love that. My brain just it's like you just lit a match on it and I have so many ideas now. Like, yeah, just like light a match, dump a gallon of gasoline on it and let me run. But yeah, I think that's a great way to look at it. Cause like you said, people aren't hitting that 1,000 download thing, especially if they're just getting started. If they're a year, 2 years in and they're still trying to find their place in the world and really establish their show. So yeah, I mean, I'm willing to bet you got 4 friends that will come and support you and pay that money at the door. And then they might have a friend that they could bring. They might have family that they could bring. You're going out to all these networking groups. I know I am constantly. It's one right after the next. And those people are showing up too. So yeah, your community is bigger than you think it is. And I'm willing to bet they want to see you succeed.
I tell people 2 things, especially in the Pittsburgh area. This should be a special event at this point in your podcast career. Maybe it's something you want to do quarterly just to reward your fans, hang out with your friends and family, bring people to the theater, help you record a show and just have a night up. People bring their own catering. They bring their own drinks. Like it becomes this festive celebration. And there's one other bonus that you get from doing live shows that you never thought of. We didn't even think of when we launched this place is You probably have friends and family that you've told, hey, I have a podcast. And they're like, oh, that's nice, sweetie. We're so proud of
That's
you.
cute.
And they don't listen. Your family does not listen to your podcast. Your friends probably don't listen to your podcast. You may have gone to like on Thanksgiving and pulled up their phone secretly and automatically subscribed them. I know people have done that. I've done it. It's just like I'll teach them. Whenever you go back home and you say, hey, end of January, beginning of February coming up here, we're putting a live show together. I'm going to be on the main stage at the Paduti Live Podcast Theater in downtown Tarentum. We're doing a special live event. I'm headlining the night. It's my night on the show. Your family and friends' perspective instantly changes what your little hobby was. Like they used to think, oh, that's cute. Little Jeffy does his podcast and he's having a good time. But now that I told them I'm going to be live on the main stage at the podcast theater, they understand that. That's very tangible. You watch your friends and family and close fans, they light up when you start telling them like, hey, this is now a thing. They're going to be live. My son or daughter or my girlfriend, my husband, they're going to be live on the stage. You guys should come out. It's a lot of fun. We'll go buy pizza. You can bring BYOB if you want. It becomes something so much more when your podcast has a live date set. All these other little benefits, like you can break even. You can probably cover your expenses. Like let's say you sell 10 tickets, you make $50. That's probably most people's podcast hosting for 3 to 5 months, depending on where you're hosting it.
Right.
So just doing this with your friends and family covers your cost of your hobby, right? You're going to have this unique experience that can only be created if you're there. Yeah, think about there's so many more things that can happen with podcasting than just sitting down and recording an MP3 file. And that's what we're really trying to build. This place is about community. It's about support. It's about being there for each other. It's such a new frontier. Like we just want to see it grow. And you'll see people come in who did other shows or who met at one of my meetups, and they just come to support the people that they met at meetups. And you just see it compounding, month after month. It's growing and growing. There's this great community who just love doing this and who see the potential of it, who love the benefits of doing it, and they just want to be a part of something. And I think this is a very unique experience for people to be a part of.
And I keep seeing trends for 2026. I'm chronically online. I spend too much time on TikTok, but I've been seeing everyone like starting to make their predictions for 2026. What are people craving? What are we all going to be leaning more towards? And what I keep seeing over and over again is in-person community building. We have been so siloed to the screens in front of our faces in the sweatpants and comfort of our own home, as we say that we're sitting here in sweatpants. To be fair, you're half a country away from me. So, but people are craving that in-person connection and fun and unique experiences and things that get them out and involved in the community again. So things exactly like what you're doing, it's hitting the nail on the head.
People are waking up. They're realizing how destructive their cell phone is to their personal mental ability, their physical ability. People come home and they're so drained after work, they just sit on the couch and scroll. That's the only kind of relief they get, that dopamine hit of, oh, am I going to get a good video next one? Is the next one going to be a good video? Mm-hmm. And they're waking up from that. And ironically, I think AI is the culprit. Like, people don't like AI. They don't like seeing the content from AI. They don't like AI videos. And if AI is producing the majority of the stuff that's getting pushed into feeds, people are kind of like backing up. They're rejecting it. They're really seeing like, what am I doing with my life? I'm just sitting here going through these mindless videos. I'm not living a life anymore. I'm kind of like attached to this thing, and this thing controls what I do 90% of the time. Like I have to be on it. And we're seeing a pullback from that. We're seeing people want, like you said, real in-life experiences. They want to go back out into the community and hang out with friends and family, and they want something more. And they're not getting it from streaming media all night, sitting on their phone all night. It's just not a life that people want to live anymore.
Yeah, I know personally, these past couple days, we had a blizzard hit in Minnesota, and I have been literally sitting in the chair I'm sitting in right now for like 48 hours. And I had an in-person meeting this morning, and I'm like, oh, I get to go out into the world. I get to go talk to a human. Oh my gosh. And it felt so good. And that's just after 2 days.
Yeah, I still work a full-time job, so I get to drive around. I get to listen to podcasts on my, my commute to and from work. And it is nice to get out. And it's also easy to come back home at night and just sit in my chair, put on Stranger Things.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think we're being true to ourselves. We want to be around people. We want to help people. That's in our nature. Like deep down, you would help your neighbor shovel out their sidewalk in a snowstorm, right? If they got trapped and needed groceries, you'd give them a loaf of bread or some milk that you had in your house. You want to take care of people. You want to be around people. That's who we are. We survive this long through this planet by being a community, by working together and being part of each other's lives. And we're going to say, oh, we're so smart now. We know technology. We don't need people anymore. I can just do an update and I'll get a bunch of likes. Like that doesn't replace, a high five, a handshake, a hug, eye contact. You don't get that from doom scrolling.
Exactly. I think a beautiful example of that. Are you familiar with Podfest in Orlando?
Mm-hmm.
Are you going?
No, I presented this idea at 2020 in Podfest. Was the first time I did it
In 2020. But yeah, it's a beautiful example of like all these people that you meet virtually throughout the year and like who are doing similar things to you and have a passion for podcasting. Doesn't matter the topic. We're all podcasters and the bones of what we do is very similar. And like getting to all be together for 3 days in one space, like there is no energy that I can even compare. I'm literally like, my suitcase got pulled out today. I'm packing for it right now. I'm so excited just to be surrounded by 2,000 other people who are doing the same thing I am, essentially. It just feels so good.
I was actually a speaker last year, but my wife had to have surgery. It was one of those like 3-day, like you have 3 days to decide, and I had to leave in 3 days. So I had to cancel last minute. I hope it doesn't go, I don't have a strike against me. I would love to get back and present from the stage again, present this concept of live podcasting.
I will tell everyone down there. I'm a speaker there this year. So whoever's in charge of me, I will be telling them, hey, call my guy Jeff. He had a family emergency. Let's forgive this one. He's okay.
Hopefully everything works out for future events.
I believe in you.
Thank you.
Okay, so well, Jeff, we're kind of creeping up on my sweet spot of time. Probably going to go a little over because, like I said, you've lit a match and dumped gasoline on my brain. Let's take this from two sides. One, let's start with if the person who has a podcast, they want to accept your challenge, they might not live where you are. What advice would you have for them to like, hey, here are the next 3 steps to take to make this come to life and meet my challenge?
Yeah, work backwards, right? Start with where is it even possible? If you want to do this, if it's just your basement and you want to have friends over or your patio on your back porch or your backyard and you want to have a summer night where you put a tent up, you set up the equipment and you just hang out in the backyard, you have drinks and barbecue and just have a good time. Start with that. Like that's how we can do that. That's the place we're going to do it. If there's a bar or a restaurant or a library, see if that space is available and then work backwards from there. I talk about this all the time. So reach out to me. I'm happy to help point you in the right direction. I'm happy if you're ever traveling to Pittsburgh, I'll book a day on the stage for you. Like you want to cut hey, I'll be in Pittsburgh for some reason on Wednesday, February something. The night is yours. I will give you that night. Let's go through it. We'll practice and we'll record your show and we'll have some good times doing it. Just reach out to me. I will help you establish that. But I always say, if you don't have a space, think of it in reverse. Think about the backyard idea. Think about the coffee shop idea and start small, be reasonable. Don't go and rent a hotel conference room. That's going to cost you 10 grand, by the time you factor in everything. Don't go renting things. Do the proof of concept first using those free events, like a corner of a bar that has a stage that isn't busy at 2:00 on a Saturday after football ends or something. Find free spaces and just test the waters. Can you get 5 people? Can you get 10 people? And then start to build that. Can you get to 20? And then maybe you need a little bigger of a space. The library has this auditorium that you can rent for like $50 for some reason. So that it's not priced correctly for some reason. And you can find these spaces to do these shows. And you're just going to have the most amazing time putting it together, that build up to the day of the show, doing the performance. And then when you get off stage, getting off stage is better than everything else that you did leading up to that moment. You have such as energy, you have a rush, you're meeting people, you're getting real-time feedback, people are shaking your hand. They may thank you for the previous episode you did on how to macrame cowboy pants. That changed my life. It changed the whole way I macrame. And you get this real-time reaction, and you just build this community that you don't get when you release an MP3 file and don't hear any feedback. Work backwards, start there. If that doesn't work for you, reach out to me, jeff@poduty.com, PODUTY.com. That's my email. It goes right to me. I will answer it, and I'll point you in the right direction.
Okay, next question. What about for someone like me who is fascinated by this? If I wanted to get started on like potentially building my own theater myself, give me a couple of baby steps I could take in that direction.
Yeah, even the same way. Like I went through an incubator program. There are places in your community that will give you certain resources to help you develop things in the arts category. We did business plans. I had consultants. I had financial consultants, legal consultants. A thing like that is a great way to structure this idea so that you know, like, okay, this is all I have to do to break even. I can do that. Like that's with my budget, what I've allocated, the runway that I have for the year to 2 years. I can do this, and I know it's tangible in my head. Just like when you wanted to, you were asking about people who wanted to start doing this. You should do the same thing. If you can find 3 or 4 podcasters, maybe in your niche, or maybe it's a business consulting, or it's something that you do in your area, and you find 2 or 3 others, put a little event together. Go to a place, that would be a great place for a library auditorium, and sell your own tickets. You can use services like Eventbrite or Facebook events. If you have a Stripe account, you can build your own ticketing page yourself. You don't have to spend money to be able to do this, and test it out. Put a bill together of 3 or 4 podcasts. Maybe there's a main speaker, a keynote speaker. You just built yourself a little event. It's probably a $50 ticket. You didn't even realize, like, oh my goodness, you sell 10, 20 tickets to there. There's $1,000. You give each speaker $100. That's more money than they probably ever made. You walk away with 500, and you take care of expenses and tip out everybody. That's a good night. So, work backwards again, and, start to, who can you work with? Because that's one thing. I think one mistake I made is, while I did a ton of virtual events prior to this, and I could announce that I'm going to do a virtual event and I'd have it filled up in 2 or 3 days with like 36 podcasters. I didn't do that homework in Pittsburgh. So I would strongly recommend doing it the way I'm suggesting to you. See if you can put a show together, or 3 or 4 podcasters, and start to get some momentum. Once you do, if you do an event once a month and you get $1,000, that's probably, in an area like I'm in, that's your rent and change left over for electrical.
Yeah.
There's ways to do this, and I would suggest doing it backwards from the way I did it.
I love that. That is some really solid advice. My brain's just flaming right now. It's just on fire. And I think that this is such a cool concept. And I feel like it is attainable for everyone, from the person who just started podcasting to someone who's been at it for 5 years and maybe is hitting that 1,000 downloads an episode. Like, this is something everyone can and should be at least attempting to do for their show. And this has just been an enlightening conversation. I'm so glad that we matched on PodMatch, because this is filling my soul with nothing but happiness right now. I'm not going to lie.
I will tell you one side effect of learning about this. And I do podcast meetups once a month where I buy food and pizza and drinks for everybody. If 20 people come in, there's about 6 of them that the light bulb goes off, and their mind is just reeling for the next 3 hours. They got, what if I did this? I'm an author. I want to bring authors to the stage. Could I do an interview with another author? Can I bring this person in? I want to can they be a remote guest too? Like, we didn't even talk about the technical aspects of this. You could actually, when I do Paduty in the News, our news podcast, usually I'm on the stage and my guest is Minnesota. They're in Washington, and you could be on the stage in front of an audience with a virtual guest anywhere in the world, and you're all in this together. So there's just so much more potential than you ever think about. And when you start seeing how this whole thing works together, you can't stop thinking of ideas. It's almost impossible.
That's the best kind of ideas, are the ones that just keep sparking more of them. Well, to wrap this up, I would love to know what podcast you have been listening to lately besides your own. Like, what have you
Yeah.
been really vibing with?
I'm an old guy, and I got a long commute. So for years, I've always listened to Bill Burr in the morning, just the stream of consciousness. So what he talks about isn't as important as how he does that for 30 minutes. It's pretty incredible. Whitney Cummings, I like a lot of comedians and their backstories. Even I listened to Burt Kreischer for a while, but not recently. I like Pod News, School of Podcasting. I like Grow the Show. Even the Beancast was one of the first podcasts I ever listened to, like in 2007. It's kind of a panel show with marketers, marketing over coffee. Joel's 6 Pixels of Separation, which is now Thinkers One. I like those shows where you're challenging my ideas and you're challenging my norms. They all push you in some way or another to kind of think outside the box.
I love that. And then last question I have for you. It's more of a statement. I guess I don't know if it's really a question or not. Go ahead and plug all your shows and where everyone can find you.
Easiest is Paduty, PODUTY.com. 6 letters. It's less letters than Netflix. So if you're going to waste time typing Netflix.com, you're stupid. Type Paduty, PODUTY.com. You'll learn all about the theater, our upcoming shows, upcoming events. If you like what I've been talking about and you want to hear about other people doing this around the world, I do a show called Paduty in the News. It's news.paduty.com, News for news.paduty, PODUTY.com, news.paduty.com. We're just search for Paduty and the News. And it's every week we do 6 stories. I have a guest host. I'd love to have Abby come on and be a guest host. We talk about 6 stories from a 10,000-foot view. So if they're doing shows in arenas or they're just bringing their community together. We had one last week about a high school starting a podcast club to then eventually start to do live shows with the community. So we talk about what's happening in the world of live podcasting, and we try to help business owners and podcasters apply that to their strategy. How do you do that show live? How do you use those tactics to make your podcast better, whether you're just recording or whether you're doing it live in front of an audience? It's Paduty in the News. It's my passion project. We record live 2 times a week, Tuesdays and Saturdays. We do one 10 a.m. Saturday mornings, which we call Coffee with Paduty in the News.
Ooh, I like that.
If my host is in theater, we walk down at a local coffee shop, we grab a sandwich, we grab some coffee, we have breakfast together, and then we record the show. We just did one with somebody in the audience, came out today with Jessica Sutton. Great episode. And again, 6 news stories about live podcasting recorded live. It's very meta. If you want to reach out, have questions about live podcasting, I will help you no matter where you're at. If you're in Pittsburgh, even better, we can get together at the theater. But if you're in Minnesota or Baton Rouge, I will help you figure out how to do this live, because I really want to see little places like this pop up all over the country so that I myself on the weekend, I could go to Cleveland, I could go to Baltimore, I could go to Cincinnati and do like these little tours of my show all over the country. And so you guys got to catch up to me. So everybody else start thinking about, how do I do a podcast theater in my hometown?
Oh, believe me, I got the wheels a turning. I'm already like thinking about what's for sale in my downtown area and what can I convert. Well, Jeff, this has been such a treat. Thank you so much for doing this. And of course, I'll have all the links in the show notes below, so you don't got to search too far to find our new friend, Jeff. Thank you so much for coming on.
You're welcome. Thank you.